And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Keeping It True by You Saints. Well, it's the opening day of training camp, and it has now concluded, so we can take a bit of analysis, kind of look and see some of the things that you're able to pick up on day one, which is now with the CBA rules as they are, pretty much just walk through type of work. There's not much that goes on as far as intensity in the way of hard hitting competition because you're not allowed to use pads until next week. So it was a short practice. It was a practice that was mostly guys getting to go out there in 11-on-11 settings and sort of put in different packages and strategies, but it's not necessarily the type of practice that's going to determine who's starting week one, be it now at safety after Tyrann Mathieu decides that it's his time to retire. And, of course, at the quarterback position, one of the main things that are going to be floated around as NFL preseason storylines, not to mention the potential of other critical positions such as special teams getting opened up for competition. It's going to be very interesting to see. Of course, this is Keeping It True by You Saints, where all the latest information comes to you regarding what's going on with the New Orleans Saints and everything that goes into getting this team ready for another attempt at a Lombardi Trophy. So let's go ahead. We'll move into what we saw, what we felt as training camp opens. Now, like I say, day one is not the practice you want to use to gauge where your team's at, much less what the team is capable of going on deeper and deeper into a season. It is truly a practice that is just saying, hello, everybody, we are back. Everybody, let's go get some conditioning in. Let's sort of put the entire team out on a field and get to practice in certain scenarios, but it is not, again, maybe the most intense practice. Of course, you do have live action, but it is very guarded. Again, no pads, which means very little as far as intentionality of contact. Mostly just, again, that walk through, follow the route, be on time type of workout. Now, one thing that is going to be a major storyline, and you're going to hear it all season long, so let me please be the first one that you get to hear it from. The Saints have a new coach, Kellen Moore, and Kellen Moore is going to be a very young coach, a very young coach that has to go about finding his own way and finding a way to replicate success because he comes from a team that just won the Super Bowl. So how do you get some of that success to transfer from your last job now that you get all the responsibility? Well, I believe that is what we're seeing here as you start the conversation around live work. You listen to the press conference that he gave after practice today, and it seems very much as though it's cut and dry, it's to the point, it's playing it safe, and I think that's part of Kellen Moore's personality, number one. But in another way, I think it is he understands how things could unravel if there's not a inherent sense of active planning and professionalism, which, I give the guy all the credit in the world for. I think it's a very important thing you need to have, particularly at his level of coaching time and task, if you will. Of course, had plenty of experience both as college quarterback, NFL quarterback, and then now coaching for the better part of the last decade, at least on the calendar as it goes, not necessarily, the 2020s. We're talking 10 years. But nevertheless, I look at the guy and I say, okay, he realizes there is a seriousness to what he's doing. There's a intentionality that's needed, and he's responding with that. I'm very glad to hear it. And that's kind of the best thing that we got out of that press conference. Obviously, you have two players that entered training camp on the PUP list in Foster Moreau and Taysom Hill. Taysom being less of a surprise than Foster, but at the same time, both of them pretty much it's understood they will at least have a shot to be back sooner than later. Taysom will be later than sooner. We'll definitely say that for sure. But it points to a thin tight end room. It points to now a thin secondary. And all of this has now been reflected by the folks in Vegas. You saw the Saints, and it's reflected there on the screen. If you're watching, thank you again. Don't forget, follow, subscribe. Have to appease the algorithm. But you see it reflected here. I mean, the guy has Juwan Johnson, who has shown that he has quite the talent at the position of tight end and is currently the best tight end in the Saints offensive room entirely. But beyond that, you're talking about a big package of guys who are, really going to be fighting in preseason to see who gets that roster spot. If it is someone like maybe a Michael Jacobson, a Seth Green, a Mulkey Motivato, and I'm going to have to work on that name. I know it's 7th round draft pick. I'm working on it. I'm getting there. Everybody wait, be patient. We got to hear it in preseason, and you're going to hear it in preseason because, again, Juwan Johnson can't take all these snaps. And that's where the Saints are. I can realistically say today, everybody take your expectations and maybe drop a win. Win total 5.5. Maybe drop that a win at this point, because you lose the veteran leadership of a Tyrann Mathieu when he retires. You take a look at, and thankfully the Saints were able to make a quick move and bring in Julian Blackmon, who now you have to assume has a good shot to be the starting free safety. But it's, of course, not guaranteed. You did just draft Jonas Sanker out of, I believe it's Virginia. He's going to go, and he's going to play very good preseason minutes. He have a shot to earn the spot, but I don't think he necessarily will. But, hey, he's going to have to play. He's going to have to play. Everybody in that safety room, is going to have to play. You bring in Justin Reed, which now is a invaluable hire as far as getting a quality veteran in that safety room to go along with, again, just being quite frankly here, you have Kool-Aid McKinstry, you have Alontae Taylor, and Isaac Yato. It's not the deepest secondary, but it's going to be a sign of where the Saints are this year. And you switch from having a defensive-minded coach and a defensive-minded philosophy in Dennis Allen, and to a degree, the later Peyton years, once Dennis Allen really was at the top of his coaching ability here in New Orleans in those late Peyton years. But, Kellen Moore is going to be an entirely new system, and that's where I think particularly it's always tough to tell in preseason because nobody's going and playing with the intensity, so it's really something that you may have to wait until you see Kyler Murray in week 1. But Brandon Staley as your defensive coordinator, this is somebody who I think is going to make or break the shot at the Saints being 2-15 or on a good side somewhere between 6-11, 8-9. There is still talent on this team. By no means do I see this team being without talent, but it is going to need a lot of cohesive implementation of the plan. And I'm not going to be the guy who comes here and tells you Kellen Moore doesn't have a plan. I don't know how fast he can put it in, though. It's going to be a matter of, is the plan able to be adapted, particularly when, to switch back to the offensive side of the ball here, look, you have two quarterbacks between Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck who just don't have the start experience, and that's okay, but it's going to have the natural roughness that comes with that. Thankfully, you bring in a just overflowing of veterans in your running back room right now between Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Cam Akers, Devin Neal, just a lot of guys, of course, who you picked up in the draft to bring in the rookie there, to go along with Alvin Kamara, of course, and Keandre Miller. So you got the horses in the stable. Can you get them to run when it's time for race day? Something Miss Benson should know quite a bit about. And I say Devin Neal as a veteran because the guy did play quite a while in college, and he is kind of that veteran mindset, although he's very young, which we'll see what comes of him. And those things is pretty much the basis of what Kellen Moore said today. I don't expect a lot out of day one of camp, but I know you all do, and you expect me, as someone who you trust for your Saints news, to bring it to you. So I do. But let's transition here. Just a couple more things I want to look at. This is not the longest episode, guys. It's just kind of going over what we saw. You can only break down a practice so many different directions. But one of those things that I think needs to be approached is you had players, particularly your veterans and your stars, is what I'll call it, go out there day one. You're not going to go put the quarterbacks out there who are going to be fielding a million questions that they're going to hear all preseason. You don't put, maybe the people who are directly playing the same position as the guy who goes down as a legend and just retired because, again, pressure. So Saints decided to send out Chris Olave, Cam Jordan, and Demario Davis, pretty much the perfect trio to go and field questions on day one of camp. And, the theme between all of them is basically, hey, we're prepared. We are ready to adapt with what comes our way. But a lot of questions got asked basically saying, you're currently predicted to be the worst team in the NFL. How do you feel about that? How do you see it? And I feel like as a player, as somebody who is in control, quote unquote, of how all this goes, to know that you have people in your organization who say, I don't really think that's the way how things will end up. I don't really think that's something that we're worried about. It can be very much fluff, but at the same time, I think that enough of these people have seen high-level success that they don't necessarily view this team as an instant write-off that's going to be, potentially one of the worst modern teams in NFL history. And that is a touch reassuring for Saints fans because at this point, any opportunity to start the process correctly, again, the Saints are in a rebuild. There is no way to work around it. They have some nice pieces that they're going to do their best to do something with. But the second that you were able to get out of that Derek Carr contract and the second that you were able to start moving the team through a very potentially well thought out draft that I think had quite the strong capacity to do some major things, particularly when you bring in as many draft picks as Mickey did, not really dishing them all out. The Saints are rebuilding, and to get season one through with mild and if not any hiccups is got to be the priority for this organization. You have to get, just again, it doesn't matter if you are 4-13, if you're 8-9. The thing is, this team has to go out there, show that they can play competent football, put themselves in positions to win games, and just play the games. I am not going to be hurting as somebody who is passionate about the Saints team if the team goes 3-14. It would not hurt me, but it would be bad if they went 3-14 with 10 blowouts. That would be very much unsettling. Right now, my at least optimistic viewpoint is that the team will be able to compete in more games than people expect, and you'll see that there is enough to really jumpstart in a couple years and be back in playoff contention. And that's where the team will have to start this 2025 campaign, with the intent to be better and always in it. And I think if that is the main focus, the motto, you'll have guys like your young players in Danny Stuntsman, in Quincy Riley, in Kelvin Banks Jr., your first round pick. If those people go out there, Vernon Broughton, and get to show you that they are bought in on becoming the best they can be whenever the stakes are relatively low, that is generally a good formula for success and a good formula for growth. So we'll see what happens here. I'm excited. I hope you all are as well. We'll be covering training camp as major stories come about. And then, of course, the first game is coming up on August 10th against the Chargers. It'll be a fun one to see, of course, with your head coach having ties to the Chargers as well as your defensive coordinator. I feel like even though it's preseason, it may mean a little bit more to them. And I'm excited to see how the team goes out and play at that time. But, of course, before that, they will head to California, have some larger joint practices, and generally just kick off that phase of training camp. That begins in about 2 weeks. Next week's will be pads in New Orleans. And that will, of course, be very entertaining to watch if you're able to make it down there. Don't forget, all the open to the public training camp practices are free. You just need to get a ticket online. So if you're looking to go watch some football before the football gets going, you can do it in the state. And of course, don't forget, if you are getting that football itch and you want to know a little bit more about what's going on in this Bayou region, in Saints territory, the land of the Houdat Nation, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow wherever you're at. And of course, thanks for watching, and we'll see you as we keep it true by you next time here on True Bayou Sports Media Network. Thanks, everybody. This has been a True Bayou Media production. This show is for entertainment purposes only and does not render legal or financial advice. Remember to bet responsibly. Distribution of this podcast is prohibited without the express written consent of True Bayou Media or its subsidiaries. Thanks for being true by us. We can't wait until next time we keep it true by you.